Pam, you did a hell of a job.
Thank you very much.
I wasn't quite sure when we first started walking this path what was going to happen, but we're all very pleased, not only the people that participated and the models and everything, but it was good PR for the gallery. And Pam?
Take it away?
Yeah?
Okay.
You want to turn this so it's to you, because it's not. It's turned to the audience.
It'll get me, I think. Oh no, how bad do I want to see myself? Come sit down, I'm starting my talk.
Okay, you gotta go sit up there.
Lynette.
She won't answer your questions.
So welcome everybody to Portraits from Havre de Grace. As you know, I'm Pam. A little bit about myself. I'm from Chicago. I've lived here in Harford County for about 25 years. And I graduated from the American Academy of Art in the early 80s with a degree in advertising design and illustration. The inspiration for this project began over 3 years ago when I first saw the work of Rose Franzen. I was introduced to Rose's work at my first Portrait Society of American convention in 2016. And I later went on to purchase Rose's book about her year-long community portrait project called Portrait of Makokata, and began to read about her experience of painting her community in Makokata, Iowa. Her paintings were amazing, but her accounts of her experience and interactions with her community fascinated me. You see, like many frustrated artists, I have been struggling to make better paintings, but also struggling to engage my community. Am I the only one who sees the value in painting people? How can I get the average non-artist to stop and look and see what I see? Rose Franzen had solved this problem and engaged her very rural community. Maybe I could too. I mean, how different is Harford County from Makokata, Iowa? I began to wonder if maybe my community would respond in the same fashion. So for 2 years, I thought about trying to do something similar, and also wondered if I even had the alla prima portrait skills to pull it off without embarrassing myself too much. There were many details to be considered besides the paintings. How do I organize an idea and make it a reality? First, I would need a venue, something public so folks could watch. I wanted this to be an opportunity for people to see my process and to get them involved. In this digital age, many have become accustomed to instant gratification, and attention spans have followed suit. I wanted the public to see what 2 people and 3 hours of focus could achieve. I had hoped my interactions would also inspire folks to come in and sign up to be painted themselves. So even before Artists Emporium had officially opened, I approached Robert Booten in 2016 about this idea I had. His building had an amazing location and a front window that was a perfect fit, and I knew he was looking for ways to inspire visitors into his gallery. Robert liked the idea, and he gave me his support and told me, when you're ready, give me a call, and I did. Having a venue secured, I began to think, how am I going to pay for this? I had applied for grant money, but being a relatively unknown artist with little experience applying for grants and projects of this magnitude, it came as no surprise that my request was denied. So now what? I wanted to attract anyone willing to give me 3 hours of their time to come in and be painted, but my past experience of getting people to sit to be painted and also pay for the privilege was not good. But I couldn't afford to cover the cost for this project, so I decided to market the sessions with a $50 registration fee and prayed that folks would see the value in what I had to offer. The $50 registration fee would cover my rent, my paint, my medium, my canvas, my frames, my prints, the print envelopes, printer ink, and signage for the show. It did not cover my time or travel expenses. I estimate I put over 1,500 hours into this project and 3,500 miles on my car. The expenses for this project came in just under $3,000, not including my rent. So you may ask, why again is an artist working for nothing? My response is that one of the purposes of this project was to make myself a better portrait painter, and in order to achieve this goal, a lot of hours behind the brush is required. I know I could have taken more workshops, but at this point in my career I felt ready for something more. I wanted to work from my accumulated knowledge and to build on it. This was going to be an opportunity for me to find my own voice, and in doing so, I would need a lot of fresh faces to paint. By engaging the public in this project, it could also serve a dual purpose. I get to become a better painter and also engage a community in a conversation about what I love most, painting.
Excuse me,
Sure.
I can't hear you, dear. Is it
Okay.
I'm gonna make noise and move up a little bit.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
that's fine.
You wanna move up further? I'm only getting every other word.
I'll come up closer too.
Joe, you can come up here with me, I can't
Oh, I
hear
don't
either.
know. You've been sick. I don't want to.
That's why I'm up here, so I can hear.
How are you? Thank
So
you.
I would need a lot of fresh faces to paint. By engaging the public in this project, it would serve a dual purpose. I'd become a better painter and also engage my community about a conversation that I love most, painting. But along with that conversations, many more would surface. Diversity, inclusion, culture, racism, and a host of other topics were covered during these sessions. I learned strangers' stories in a most unique way. The project could serve to inspire others in all sorts of ways, along with giving me valuable experience working with all sorts of people. To me, it was going to be a win-win situation, and the body of work would serve as a testament to my abilities, and hopefully other opportunities would follow. With my budget figured out to the penny, I had to figure out a way to make it easy for people to sign up online. In the past, I'd used a website called Sign Up Genius when I had to fill slots for Harvard Artists Association. Sign Up Genius is a fairly simple interface and is free. So I set up an account and pressed publish, and I generally had 4 sessions available Fridays through Monday. It cost nothing upfront for models to sign up, and all that was needed was an email and a phone number. Having my sign-up situation resolved, I began to think about how am I going to keep people in the chair for 3 hours. My models were average people, not accustomed to sitting like statues, and the only experience most people had were posing for photos. Not quite the same when you're modeling for an artist. Sitting to be painted requires a model to stay in position and to return to that position after breaks. I came up with an idea to attach a hands-free device to the back of my easel. That way folks could watch a movie or a video while I painted, and it was a way to get them back into position after breaks. But what I had not anticipated was that people would want to talk and talk and talk. And talking people are hard to paint. So I got good at finding their likeness and fleeting glances. It was a bit like shooting a moving target. Once I established the bullseye, I had to continue to find it. But the conversations that took place were well worth the target practice because I got to really know the people I was painting, and I have never felt this way when painting from photos. Something magical inevitably happens when 2 strangers sit down, stare into each other's eyes for 3 hours. There were moments that brought tears to my eyes and a feeling of transcendence came over me. Here we were, 2 strangers sitting in the window in Havre de Grace. One, a vulnerable model being eyeballed by a strange artist. The other, a strange artist vulnerable to the criticism of possible failed attempts. We both agreed that come what may, the paintings would be shown and there was no backing out. We would give it our best shot. I did allow myself to take 1 reference photo of the models at the end of the session. This photo was used after we parted ways. As in most cases, I continued to work on the paintings for an additional 3 to 5 hours in my home studio. The 3-hour live sessions, though, gave me a great foundation to work from, and the photo only served as a reminder of what I had observed earlier that day. The after sessions involved correcting drawing errors, softening edges, defining backgrounds. If I was working on a couple's painting, I would put them together on my easel and work on them at the same time in an effort to create unity between the 2 works. This was where the model contract came in handy. All the models in the show were required to sign a contract. The contract outlined the purpose of the show and that the paintings were not commissioned work and were to be painted to my satisfaction. At no time were they allowed to art direct me, though a few did. This allowed me to use the project to experiment and to grow as an artist without the pressure of commissioned work, which is an entirely different experience and requires a cash flow that this project did not. So for the $50 registration and the 3-hour session the models endured, I promised to deliver a free G-clay print of their painting at the opening reception. There was no obligation to purchase the original art, but if they chose to do so, they would be charged an additional $300. My hope is that I would create enough paintings that would be purchased, thus creating some revenue for my efforts. But regardless of sales, I will still have benefited in so many ways. My portrait skills have become more confident, and I've created a body of work that I am proud to share. I've connected with my community in a way that satisfies me on a level that I had only dreamed of. I have met so many kind, generous people this past year from so many different backgrounds, all with one thing in common. They all came to be painted by me, to support my vision and saw the value in what I had to offer. My models were my gift, and I thank them all from the bottom of my heart. I also want to thank Robert Boudin for his own vision and understanding the value artists bring to the community and creating this beautiful venue, a place where artists can spread their wings and everyone is welcome to find inspiration. I would like to thank my biggest supporter, my husband Scott. We have been a couple for nearly 40 years, and there's no one on this planet who understands and supports my vision like he does. He once told me, "Let what you love define you," and then he gave me the freedom to do it. Thank you. So I'm going to share some of the time-lapse videos I took. I time-lapsed video almost all the paint sessions, so you can see my process. The first one is Kamei Murphy. She's a local Havre de Grace resident, and a lot of people know her. She's also the daughter of Cat Calloway. And Kamei, I believe, was my eldest participant.
Where is her?
So I'm going to put, this is the time, so I'm projecting up on the screen. And this is her time-lapse video of paint session. And so I come in, I start my canvases in burnt umber, and I generally put a light wash of burnt umber and linseed oil over the canvas before I start, just to kind of moisten it up. And that's a 3-hour session, and it's compressed into 30 seconds. I can think that fast. So the painting wasn't completed. So this is where we left off. And I went ahead and shot a photo reference of Kamei before she left. I went home and finished the painting on my own. My next person is, this was my youngest participant. Asher was 7 months old. And I worked with his mom to, let's figure this out when nap time is. Feed him a big lunch, put a clean nappy on him, and she rolled him in the stroller. He was conked out. We propped his head up with a toy. And in Asher's case, I didn't know how much time I had, so I immediately took his reference photo. And sure enough, he woke up in 45 minutes. So here's Asher's session.
And it could be safely said he was the only model that was brought in against his will.
So you see this, you'll see him pop awake, and it's just, So I kept working for a little bit with him awake. Yeah, he's awake now. And I finished up from his photo reference also. So there's Asher. That's how Asher came in. That's how Asher left. And that's how Asher got finished up. So I finished Asher. So a lot of people ask me about my backgrounds. In Asher's case, as I took him home and I'm working on him, I started to think about babies. They have so little life experience. What do they dream about? In Asher's case, he dreams about bubbles and he dreams about his elephant. So I gave him some bubbles floating around. This is Robert Boudin. We had to take a lot of breaks to chase a bird around the gallery. So I had Robert in the chair for about 2 hours, and we'd run around and chase the bird. Finally got the bird out of the gallery.
It was a nice day, we left the door open.
So you mean that literally? And the bird decided it was an invitation.
I think the bird was trying to upstage him. So I ended up adding a bird to Robert's painting. This was Robert's photo reference, and so Robert gave me his eye. I don't know if anyone's ever noticed, but Robert's eyes, they're not the same size.
We're gonna look now.
So, and he ended up with a bird on his shoulder. This is Bob Green. Bob Green is a local in Havre de Grace and head of the Green Team and the Cat Club. And anytime you see Bob out in the neighborhood picking up cigarette butts. So when Bob came to be painted that day, he had his sticker with him that he picks up the cigarette butts with in his bucket. And he came in, he sat down for me, and the first question out of his mouth, he asked me, "You smoke cigarettes?" I was like, "No, sir." And I'm glad I don't smoke, because Bob's nemesis is the cigarette butt. He hates them. And during breaks, he would go outside and pick up cigarette butts, and then he'd come back and sit for me. And Bob was insisted that I put his picker in the painting. So I added the picker. I was like, "Bob, seriously, you're such a handsome guy." I mean, like, but I gave him his picker, but I went home and I looked at this, and I thought, no one's gonna know what that is. It could be a golf club, it could be something. So, and then I took it out, and I changed it to the other side of the picker, which has the claw on it, and put one cigarette butt in it, and then purposely put it as far off the canvas as I could, falling out. I didn't really want it there, but Bob wanted it. So there's an art direction that I took. I have no idea who this is. Oh, this is one of my little girls. This is Sadie. Sadie, you're sorry. And she was 6 years old. And the children I generally got out in an hour and a half, tops, because their patience levels are a little bit less, and it's usually enough to get them through one movie and then they're done. There she is with the painting. So the paintings weren't finished at the end of 3 hours. There's just no way to do, I'm sorry, I can't. Rose Franz and even in Iowa, she required people to come sit for 5 hours. And if you wanted to be painted with your teeth, she required another 2 hours. And I think I could have got a lot more done if you guys would have sat for 7 hours. So this is where I was. I took home my photo reference of her, and I finished up from that. And that was her. So I go home, and here's my computer at home. I set it up on my computer. I have an easel at home. And a lot of times I'll flip the paintings upside down, I'll flip the photographs upside down and look at the paintings that way to try to see my errors or see what stands out. Because if it doesn't hold together upside down, then it's not holding together right side up. And her older sister came in, and it was amazing. There's only a year between them, but you can start to see kids, they mature. There's these subtle changes that start to happen in them. Just from 6 to 7, I could see big changes. And that's where I finished up. Still a very unfinished painting at that point. But it was a good foundation. And her reference photo, and her finished painting. This young man, I actually painted his mom on Mother's Day. She came in. Her name was Barbara Winfield. And she came in on Mother's Day, and she was just taking a little break for herself. She's the mother of a special needs boy, and he's a lot of work. So she got the day off, and she came and sat for me, and she started telling about her son, Kevin. Boy, I'd really love to get him painted, but I don't know if I can get him to sit, because, I think he has autism. I'm not sure what his diagnosis is, but he's very easily stimulated. And I said, I'm willing to try if you're willing to try. So she made an appointment for him, and Kevin came to the gallery that day, and he just loved the art. He was running around the gallery looking at all the paintings. He loves art. And I got to this point where I wasn't even sure if I was going to get him to sit in the chair to be painted. And I'm like, Mom, you think we can kind of get him into the chair? So we finally got him to sit down, and he was fine. Once he was in the chair, he sat like a little statue for me. And I was like, Kevin, do you want to watch something on the hands-free device? Oh, no. So we get started painting, and we're about 10 minutes into the painting. He would lean over to his mom and go, Mom, why is this taking so long? And he would say, you promise you're going to show me the painting when you're done? You promise? I'm like, I promise, and I'm working as fast as I can. And I had Kevin for about an hour in the chair. But what we accomplished in that hour was magical. It was really hard for him. He didn't want to be shown in the video at all. He was very conscious about his image for some reason, so I made sure he wasn't cropped in. that was Kevin at the end of the session.
Broken.
And that's Kevin examining the painting. I made sure he saw. He approved, he was excited. And that was my reference photo. And I think Kevin was about 13 years old, so he's just starting to hit puberty, so you could start seeing like little peach fuzz on him. And I'm really proud of that painting because I know it was hard for him and I was under the gun, and I'm really happy what I captured of him. Is it a perfect likeness? I've gotten to the point that to me a perfect likeness is not that important. It's important up to a point, and then you can capture something even more.
What can you say about the background?
Thank you. Granted, the face is everything, but the backgrounds are fantastic.
Thank you. So this is his mom. So actually, when I got I had done her at Mother's Day, and I did Kevin probably, I think in somewhere around December. So there was a big gap between when I did them. And when I do couples, I kind of like to get them to sign up like within the first few weeks together, because I change, my painting ability changes, my energy changes. So when I got Kevin home, I put Mom back up on the easel and I worked the two backgrounds together and tried to pull some of the colors from his to hers to build a little bit of unity. Yeah, the backgrounds were kind of made up, literally made up. I tried to establish something right in the beginning, either a color or something when I first started painting, because it helped me kind of key the colors that go into the face. So I put some color down next to the face that I knew I was going to go in that direction, and then later came back and worked with it. This is the session from, on my last day of 2018, I had the honor and privilege to paint Major General Randy Taylor from APG installation. He came in his full dress blues, so it was a little intimidating, and I had talked to him the day before, and I said, "Sir, do you understand these are only 12 by 12s, I won't be able to get the regalia in, it's pretty much just the heads only." And he says, "No, that's fine, I'm wearing my dress blues." So there's a little bit of his regalia in there, but not too much. And that's where we left off. And he wanted to be painted smiling. And guess what? Rank has its privileges. I wasn't going to tell him no. So that's the Major General. That was his reference photo. And so his background, to me, American flag, he's military. But I also, because I didn't put his rank or any of his regalia, indicating his rank, I gave him 2 stars because he's a 2-star general.
So I missed that. Was that one of the criteria that you didn't do smiling? Is it?
So to me, smiling portraits are kind of artificial looking. They're fine for photography because the photograph is captured in a split second. When someone's sitting to be painted for 3 hours, it's really hard to hold a smile, a genuine smile, and they end up looking kind of like clenched teeth, and because I only had 3 hours, it just adds a whole other layer of problem solving. Trying to get the teeth to look like they're inside the head and wrapping around the figure and the right value. So it adds another layer of problem
But
solving.
you did get some smilers. You do have some smilers.
I do have a couple of smiles. But some people just naturally kind of
Yeah,
have,
yeah, that's right there.
he kind of had a natural smile. Bill Martin, mayor of Havre de Grace, came in his signature red plaid shirt. It was really wonderful to meet all these people on my terms too, in my most comfortable environment, which is behind an easel. So. There's me and Bill. Bill's reference photo. So when I lit people up too, I tried to use a real strong light usually from the left side down, and tried to get a full range from dark to light. So it helps me kind of plot out. When you overlight somebody, it flattens them out. tricks to try and make it easier on myself. There's Bill. So I can show you some other pictures. I have a lot. I mean, we could look at them. Oh, let's look at Renee's since she's here. She brought her hat, which I love. You know what? When people brought me hats, it added something really special to the paintings. It kind of just really wraps them up nicely. So she brought her signature hat. And that's another painting I'm really proud of. I have a few that I'm really proud of. And, you know, and like any collection, there's some that are stronger, some are weaker. And I kind of gave myself permission to fail too. I'm only human.
Do you think the stronger ones were the people that you knew better?
I would say 95% of these people I've never met.
Or connected.
Yeah, so, and I think it's harder for me to paint people I know. And so this was kind of nice too, because I got to make first impressions. There's Linnea at the end of our session, and I got a lot done in that 3 hours. That one went really, some of them came up quicker. This little boy here, this was Donovan, and he came in for a 3-hour session, and I stopped at 2 hours. I said, Donovan, call your mom, we're done. And I knew, this little voice in my head went off, I had something. I got him, and sometimes you gotta stop and either leave it alone, and maybe come back later and look at it, but I just felt like I got something there, and I need to stop. So his mom came in, she walked around the easel, and she teared up. And I'm like, yes, didn't. I stopped, because I knew if I kept going, I would have ruined it. There's Linnea's reference photo. So once again, they're very strong light from the one side. And there's your finished product, which is right there.
So what was that, I missed what the time frame was that you did these all in, like what?
So the sittings were for 3 hours.
But, I mean, in months or?
Oh, 12 months.
12 months.
So I started the end of January 2018 and then went through January. So I actually started on my birthday.
Okay. Did you find that you, like, they all look great to me, wonderful. What did you learn from it, from an art? Like, did you feel like you grew or what you learned from it, personally?
Wow, I learned to appreciate the wiggle, that people were gonna move, and I had to adapt and find a way around it. Yeah, I got more confident as I kept painting. Like some of the paintings in the beginning, like this is Hannah, she's number 3. And it's a good painting, I'm still very proud of it, but it's tighter. Whereas I started getting into points where things became more instinctual. I made a point to set up my palette the same way every time. So if you paint, I suggest this to all painters, set up the palette exactly the same every time, because it's one less decision that you have to make. Because you're making all these snap decisions. You're looking at something, you're responding, you're grabbing paint, and if it's in the same place, it's just one less thing you have to think about. It's like, why would you change the piano keys around on a piano? So try to keep your paints in the same order.
I was just thinking it'd be interesting to see them progressively and see like chronologically, like.
So all the paintings on the wall have numbers on them.
Okay.
So you can see where they are in the series. So they are numbered. I didn't hang them in chronological order though. So you can see the ones that are earlier. If you got painted in the 90s, that was a good. I was just hitting stride in 90s.
Can I ask that Johnny Boker looks like he's standing in Vincent van Gogh painting?
Yes. So I did Johnny Boker. He came in, and he is responsible for the Gold Star Memorial up in Havre de Grace. And I had never met him before. He told me I heard about the Gold Star Memorial, and he sat for me with his what is it called? His VFW hat.
Yeah.
And
Legion.
I got
He's
home
Legion.
and
He's Legion.
Legion?
He's not VFW.
I got home and I started thinking about it. I can show you his background. There was just some blue behind him. And I'm like, you know, I can do better than that. And I started thinking about his story about the Gold Star Memorial. And then I thought, aha, who else did stars? Monet. So I pulled up a reference of a Monet and gave Johnny some Starry, Starry Night behind him.
Even the handling of the paint, it has that wispiness, that
Thank
he
you.
worked with it.
Thank you. So yeah, so Johnny's came up nice. So people would give me their stories, and just because they walked out the door and we all went our separate ways, their story's still rolling in my head after we part ways. And so I start thinking about, let's see. This was Duke Thompson. He's my diptych in the show, and if anyone knows Duke, he does reenactments and educational presentations about Abraham Lincoln. And Duke is already about 6'7", so when he puts his stovetop on, he's about 9 feet tall. And when Duke said he was going to come in and be painted, I said, Duke, you want to wear your hat? And I knew there was no way I was going to fit it into a 12 by 12. I would have had to make his head a little puny thing. And now I'm going to do you on a diptych, and we're just going to take that stovetop and run with it. Let's see, we have Ezra over here. Ezra Berger is a local artist. And Ezra came in and sat for me, and we pulled up one of his paintings from the back and used it as his backdrop. So he has some very whimsical art.
And his signature sunglasses too.
His signature sunglasses. Any more questions, or?
So, yes, you said this is your youngest portrait, but isn't that younger?
So this one was in the beginning of the project. It was a slow go. Nobody was signing up, but I was still painting. And this one is actually from a photograph. I said, well, I'm going to paint a baby, and if I'm going to paint a baby, it's going to be my baby. My daughter's 29 now, but I pulled out an old photo of her because I knew I wanted to paint sleeping babies. So I was hoping to inspire someone to come in and get their babies painted, and it
There's a
worked.
story behind Medusa there.
That's me. It's a self-portrait. So these three are self-portraits. This is the girl I once was. This is me as Medusa. And that's me with my fascinator on. The Medusa one was a response. I was stood up 3 times in a row over a weekend. So I came up here, set up, and my sitters didn't show up. So by the 3rd day, I was a little ticked off. And I had a full palette of paint, so I went back and pulled a mirror up front and did a self-portrait. And got home, and it wasn't a very good self-portrait, and the hair kind of looked like snakes, and I thought, snakes it is.
The inner you.
So,
And I like the one you did of you before, the young pan, the third one down.
mhm.
Yeah, that's a wholly different technique of painting.
So that
Brush
one,
strokes are
that
so
one actually
different.
started from a mirror of me painting myself now. And I was home, and I looked over my computer, and I had a little photograph of myself from when I was 7 years old. And I was looking at it, and I'm like, you know, my proportions of my face are still basically the same. I'm a little more weathered. And I started thinking about the girl I used to be, the woman I am now. And there's certain things that never change. Our proportions of our face don't change too much, though we get a little more weathered. And so I kind of layered the 7-year-old girl on top of my current self. And then when I got it to a point, I started deconstructing the paint. So to me, that was a breakthrough painting for me, because I want to take paintings. I like the reality, but then I like to deconstruct and take things and sort of pixelate it and play with it a little bit.
Who is that?
That's Rebecca Jessup.
I thought so.
And Rebecca was tough for me to paint.
Where did she find 3 hours?
I don't know, but she gave them to me. She came in, she was hard to get to come in too.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the project, I sent her a note. I said, you have to support this project, come on. And she was very self-conscious about her, you know, a lot of people are, they just didn't want to be painted, that's fine. But she finally broke down and came in and sat for me. And the thing about Rebecca, which was hard for me, is I wasn't just painting Rebecca. I have a very dear friend that passed away a few years ago from breast cancer. And Rebecca reminds me of my friend. So when I'm staring at Rebecca, I'm thinking about my best friend. And I told her up front, I said, this is really hard because you resemble my friend, so I'm getting all these mixed emotions painting you. And she was okay with that. So it's actually a painting of Rebecca, my friend Vicky, and me. I think we're all there.
Gotta say something about the halo effect here on the young man with the green shirt.
Oh, yeah?
Looks like an aura, like a halo.
It's my
It's
grandson.
fake Cameron. He's an angel.
Oh,
Sometimes.
well, he is right now.
Yes. Let's see if I can, oops. This was Michelle. So I really wanted to, getting Michelle to sit for me was tough too. Michelle is a local here, her husband's an artist.
I think they were should.
I lost my
Yeah,
picture.
she recognized me every day I was in college when she was finishing high school.
Her husband's an artist, and she came in with these beautiful red dangly earrings. She knew exactly what she was doing when she came in with those. And she had this lovely sweep of hair, and she was my only Asian in the show. So I was like, oh my gosh, I get to paint someone different. I've done some African-American people, but the facial, the bone structure on Asian people is so different. They're very kind of flat, so trying to find a way to describe that form and still give her the three-dimensional quality was challenging. And I was so grateful that she came in and sat for me because I love the challenge of trying to figure out what makes one person the way they are and the other and how the light's working off of them. So there was her earrings, and when I finished up, she still had 2 earrings. I got home, I decided to leave one of the earrings out, just out of a artistic license. I thought it was more dramatic. And where is Michelle? She's right in front of you.
Down there. Bottom row.
Yeah, there's Michelle. So I was real happy with that one too. That's Christmas. Her name was Catherine, and I never met her. And I just really enjoyed meeting her.
Must have been around Christmas
It
time.
was, can you figure? Here's Catherine upside down. I go home and I put them up on the easel upside down and put the photo reference in upside down and take a closer look at things. And there was her reference. So, this is a couple's painting I did. This was Ben Getz and his girlfriend Isabel. And they came in around the holidays. And they each sat separately for me, but I knew they were together, so I went home and worked their backgrounds together. And I believe they're over here somewhere.
She's over there.
Oh, here they are. So I used to separate them, but they still have the same kind of groovy background going back and forth. Another couple's painting. And they're over there. I didn't do it for all couples, so I hope people want to use it. Who's this little man? Oh, this is Henry Baker. He was 5 years old. And, he actually sat pretty still for me. If you see his hand, it's not wiggling around too much. He watched Paddington Bear while I was painting him. It worked out great. There was one point his face like scrunched up while he was watching it. I'm like, Henry, what's wrong? And he's like, Paddington Bear is eating his earwax. And I'm like, you're right, that is gross. And there's little Henry. So once again, not a very finished painting, but it was a good start. So I'm glad, I wish I could get more done in 3 hours. Actually, I think I only had Henry for an hour and a half, so maybe I shouldn't be too hard on myself. this lady? Her name is Jessica Kleber. So Jessica came in, and this is getting towards the end of the project, so I'm getting a lot more done quicker. So I put in, I did the painting in all browns in the beginning. So the first hour is drawing and figuring out the value structure, and hopefully I got that done in the first hour. And once I feel confident in that, I move on to color. This is what happens when you art direct me. So this was a painting, somebody was, nice man, but he wanted this logo that was on his shirt in the painting, and I'm like, it's not gonna fit into the painting, and I was trying to accommodate him, because I did appreciate his story. It was his unit patch. He had served in Vietnam. He had been a crew chief when he was like 18 years old, and he had terrible PTSD. He had been struggling with all his life, and it was finally, probably in the last decade, he was getting help, and now he advocates for other veterans who have PTSD. So the unit patch was really important to him. So I thought, well, I can't get it on the shirt, maybe I'll put it into his background. And I put it into the background, but it was like screaming off the canvas. You couldn't even see his face. It was all about the logo. And I started thinking about, I can do that better. How am I gonna do that? I wanted to kind of push it back in time and in space. That this was something from his past. It wasn't that current in the present. So once I decided it needed to get knocked back, I took the painting outside and I started sanding off the logo to get back down to the canvas. And it still had a lot of the image left, but I kind of beat it up. It's over there, and I tried to push it back and not make it so important. But it was important to him, so I wanted to put it into.
Is the man in the red shirt?
His name's Ron Zakzak. And so this is Ron, and this is his wife Grace, who came in to be painted also. And she is Grace. She's a wonderful woman. They'd known each other since they were 17 years old. They got married right before he went to Vietnam. And she's lived with him through all the PTSD and all the problems. She stuck by him, and he finally, reached out and got himself help. And she's just a wonderful woman, just the compassion that she has. And this is their best friend, Tom. And so they also wanted Tom to be painted. And Tom and Ron go back to the baptismal fountain. That's how long they've known each other. So it was wonderful to paint them.
And Ron wrote a book on his PTSD that you read, correct?
Yeah, I read his book, and it's a tough read. I forget the name of the book. Do you remember, honey?
No.
It's by Ron Zakzak. And it's an interesting account of his time in Vietnam. And brilliant mind, but really young man when he went over there. Tough. So, this is my palette that I used for all the paintings. I use the same colors for everybody. My portrait painting is usually titanium white, cadmium red light. There was a cadmium orange that I use sometimes. Viridian, Terra Verde green, yellow ochre, Terra Rosa, transparent oxide red, alizarin crimson, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, and my burnt umber.
And have you tried any in a different medium? Have you tried any portraiture in a different medium?
I love oils. All I need.
Just that.
Yeah, I've done watercolors. When I went to art school, I had to do everything. And they put you out. You're kind of a jack of all trades, but master of none. And somewhere in the early 90s, I decided that I was going to be an oil painter and stop messing around with all the other stuff. And I still have lots to learn. Oil painting is just, there's so many things you can do with it. Here's something that came up. So I had all these paintings I was creating. So when I was deciding how to do, I could have done them on stretched canvas. I could have done them on gallery wrapped canvas that I wouldn't have to frame, but then I would have to store all these paintings. So I decided to do them on panels because they were smaller and I could store them easier. But once I got past about 30 or 40 paintings, I was running out of space to keep them. So I had to come up with a storage system, and I didn't have any budget left. So I went to Home Depot, and luckily they had 12 by 12 moving boxes, cardboard boxes. And I bought a couple of those, came home, and I used the flaps, and I cut 1/2-inch slats. Once those were cut, I cut them out with my X-Acto knife. I glued them down onto the inside of the box. That way I would have grooved places to slide my panels into. And each box held 13, and I actually doubled up. And so I could put 26 paintings in one box. And that helped a lot, because there were a lot of paintings. And there's the boxes.
So clever, Pam. So clever to figure that out.
I did all the graphics for the show, so I also did all the Photoshop graphics, everything you saw on Facebook. I would do the paintings, and then I would make the little graphics. I did the show card, the signs for the gallery, since I owned all the files, to make it easier. That was a Facebook graphic. So if you were in the show, that would go up on Facebook.
I did all the hardware on the frames.
I had to photograph all the paintings. I think I photographed the entire collection 3 or 4 times. I shot it in RAW format. I shot it with my DSL camera, and I lit it up. I shot it with my iPhone. I shot it outside. I shot it inside. So I have good files. All the paintings were varnished.
Did one system work better than the other, or was it just that this photographed better with this technique and that one photographed better with that technique?
I think for the prints, I used the raw files. The raw files allow you to manipulate a lot more. There's a lot more controls. But honestly, I think the iPhone does a great job.
That's what I wondered.
So when I got done with the paintings, I would take them out on my front porch. It was a covered front porch, so I didn't get direct light, but it was very bright out there, and I would just put them on a table. I knew that if I took the paintings outside and the sun was hitting it, you get too much glare.
Does the iPhone take raw images? Does the iPhone take raw images?
You can get an application. I download an app that shoots raw.
Just curious.
I haven't done it though.
My Android does.
Okay.
I just.
So all the paintings got varnished with Gambar varnish, and that kind of helped pull the colors back up because they sink in. But I made sure I photographed all the paintings before I varnished because I didn't want that glare coming up. Me varnishing, me framing, and my wonderful assistant, my husband, helped me frame, and it took us 2 days to install all the hardware on the backs of the frames. To get everything to hang straight in the gallery, I knew from the start that we were going to have to put all the hardware in exactly the same. And all the wires were going to have to be the same tension. That would help a little bit, and I'll show you what I learned. So all the frames were done the same. I think they were all 4 inches. But the nice thing about this hardware is there's like a 1/4 inch of play. You can push the wire up and down. So if you pull the wires tight enough, you get a 1/4 inch to play with on the wall to try and get them straight. Robert was nice enough to let me put 120 holes in the wall. Because we realized the hanging system, it would have been a nightmare trying to get them up and get them straight. There's my assistant. There was a lot of planning. I was planning out the wall before we even got here, trying to figure out. I didn't realize, I had never seen the paintings up on the wall. I've been doing them in like batches. I would varnish them 10, 12 at a time, but I didn't know how much space they were going to take up. So once I measured out the wall, I went home and I was like, oh my goodness, what have I created? So that was kind of my template for what was going to go on the wall. Then we had to put the nails in the wall, and I came in with Robert, and we dropped plumb lines with a chalk line, and we also had a laser level, and every 16 inches we marked off, and that's where the nail went. That was a test run, and it looked like it was gonna work. Oh, this is a fun video. This is the hang. So if you didn't, I like doing time lapse. So when I first initially hung the show, I didn't hang them in any particular order. I just tried to get them up on the wall, and then the next day I came back and I kind of looked at it and decided to try and keep couples together and family members together. At first I was gonna like separate everybody, and I thought, no, I'll keep everybody.
What is the amount of time between each photo? A half minute, a minute, 2 minutes?
I think it takes one every minute.
1 minute.
And here's another one. So when I started thinking about this project 3 years ago, I kept envisioning this wall of heads. And I was so happy like to realize my dream. I did it. This is the party we had. If you didn't get to come to the opening, this is what you missed. So that was about 4 hours, and then I think it's whittled down into about 40 seconds. But it was wonderful. It was wonderful to see so many people come in to look at paintings. I mean, they took the time not only to sit, but they came back to look at them. And I sat here yesterday and watched some people come through, and they were looking at the paintings. And to get people to look, this is what I was hoping for, and I got it.
It was hard to look during the opening. Hard to look during the opening because there were so many people. So a lot of people who really wanted to see the paintings had to come back.
And I think that's why we chose to run it to the show to April 30th too, so people can come back and bring their families back and take a look at it and hopefully talk about it. It's I wanted to create conversation too. Thank you.
Do you plan to show them anyplace else?
I have a show coming up at the Lerodendron in May. I may pull a few of them out to show. I'm going to put together a book of the paintings. That's another project that is in the works. I'm going to write my first book. We'll see how that goes. So that's what I'm working on next, and that's it. Any questions? I like painting. It's tough. It's hard.
Congratulations.
It's nice package for you.
It was a great year. It was,
Have you talked to
It just walked in front of it.
They do the art artists, social artists, every week on something. This is a whole show.
yeah, they were doing some kind of a fundraiser out in Hunting Valley.
Yes,
I sent them a note. I said, this is what I'm doing. I was at the end of the project, and they were looking for people to come in and demo for their fundraisers. I'll come out with a demo.
But I put away my
And they were
rolling
like, no.
stuff. I went through, I used to cross my fingers and stuff. So I made a package, take whatever you want, and whatever you're doing your sister. Because you might be able to do something. And there's, those backlogs and stuff. And then,
I borrowed Grace's